Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today we are making this cool poinsettia easel card, which I think you guys will really like. It's super simple to make. I made it with my Cricut. I'm going to share the file with you, and this guy fits in an A2 size greeting card. Now, I want you to think about something. If you have a die that makes a flower or a poinsettia, you could totally do this using a die. And if you'd like to see me do that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to hook that up for you guys to see in case you don't have an electronic cutting machine like the Cricut. But otherwise, we're going to make this one today. So here we go. So let's make a poinsettia easel card. Super easy. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to images. We want to pick out our poinsettia. Now, all I did was I clicked on images, and in the top right here, I typed in poinsettia. Do you say poinsettia or poinsettia? Everyone in the South says it different. Now, I chose to use this particular one. You could choose any one you want, but I want to show you something. If you ever want to be able to share the exact image that you used, or maybe there's something you and a friend are working on and you want them to use the exact image you are, here's a little tip. In the bottom left or bottom right corner of the image, click the eye. When you do, you can see here that this poinsettia comes from the Wrap It Up cartridge, and this is the hashtag number for it. If you ever want to share this with someone, just highlight this hashtag number and copy it and send that to a friend, and you'll know they're using the exact same image you are. Or you could say, hey, if you want to see a really great image, this is the one you want to try. The way for them to put it in and find it is to copy those numbers, okay? And all they have to do is go into the little search engine, put that number in. Whoops, I did it twice. I hit Velcro twice. 1 second. So put that number in and hit enter, and it's going to pull up that specific image. Isn't that pretty cool? I always like to share a little tip like that. So anytime you're making something and you want to know for sure, that's the number for it. Also, while you're here, if you want to see the other images on that cartridge, you just happen to love that image, click on the Wrap It Up or the name of the cartridge, and everything that is on that cartridge will pop up for you. Pretty cool, huh? All right, just a little something extra. Let me go back because I just want this guy. So I'm going to click this poinsettia, and down at the bottom right, I'm going to tell it to insert images. Now I'm going to try to go slow. This is the second time I have filmed this, and I went really fast the first time and I was disappointed. So I'm going to go slow. So if I go too slow for you, I apologize. You might want to just put the video on play faster. You can do that in the bottom right hand on YouTube. And you can tell it to go 1 time, 1.5 times, or 2 times faster. But I'm going to go kind of slow. Okay. So this poinsettia easel card at this point on my screen is just a poinsettia. I need to build my base. So the first thing I want to do is establish the size that I want my base to be. For me, I know I want it to fit in an A2 size envelope, so I'm going to go to the shapes on the left-hand side. I'm going to choose square. So this is my square. Now, I don't want it to be 3.111 inches. I want it to be 4.25 by 5.5 because that's the size that will fit in an A2 envelope. So that means I'm going to need this side and this side to be different, not the same measurement. If I were to try to resize it from here now, it's going to constrain and I'm not going to be able to change one from the other. But if I unlock the proportions right here, now I can stretch and move and get rectangles. Now that's one way to do it, but there's an easier way. Let's come to the top. Because I happen to know that I want this to be 4.25 wide and I want it to be 5.5 tall, I can just enter the dimensions and it works perfect for me. Now here's a tip, and you want to do this. Before you do all the work we're fixing to do, start this as a saved project. So come to the right-hand side at the top and click Save, and then name your project. Now I already have this saved in my computer as Poinsettia Easel Card, so I'm going to call it Poinsettia Easel Card 1. Okay, because I've already done this one once. Now, by saving it as public, if I want to share this with a friend, I can. It doesn't mean that it goes public for everybody out there to be able to find and see your work. It just says it's public, so if I want to share it, look right here. If I want to share it, I can copy it and send the URL to somebody else. So I'm going to leave it as public so I can share it with you guys. So click Save. So it's saving in the background. I know I've not done a lot of work yet, but this way, as I go through the project, I can just come up here and save as I go, and I won't lose any of my progress, or at least not all my progress. Okay, I don't work well with this gray box, so I have to change it for my brain. So I'm just going to head over here to the Layers panel. You can see that square right here showing in the Layers panel. I want to click it, and then this layer's attributes flies out for me. Now I just want to change it to white. So I can just click right here and change that to white. Now I can work with it. I don't know why. That gray just tells me no. Now this little guy, I want to resize it to fit inside my envelope. I'm going to bring it over here. Now, did you notice that it went behind my square or my rectangle? It did that because Cricut works with layers, and what it does is it puts the last one you worked with on the front. So what I need to do is go to the top where it says Arrange right up here in the top and click that button, and I want to move my poinsettia to the front. So all that does is just sit it on top of that last piece. Now I want to resize it. So I'm going to bring this over to this corner and down to this bottom. Nope, I think I'll go this way. Let's go to the top so we can drag. So I'm going to put this in here, and then I'm going to grab this little guy. I'm not unlocking the proportions. The reason is I want my poinsettia to keep the shape that it has, but I need it to be bigger, okay? If I unlock this like I did a while ago, I can lose the shape of this, and it can stretch and get a little wonky. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to stretch it. Now let me say this real quick. I have left this poinsettia grouped together on purpose. I want it to resize proportionally, or I want it to resize all the layers at the same time so they keep their look, if that makes sense. I'm not going to have to try to resize one layer and then another. So I've left this group together to do this resize, okay? If I were to separate it, I would have to do each petal, and I don't want to do that. So you can see here, I've now resized it so it fits right inside that box. That's all I needed that box for. I do not need it again, so I'm just going to delete it. That was just to get my size. Now, because I've got my size all done and ready, I'm going to run right up here and click Save and just tell it to save. And it'll just save it for me in the background, and I'm all ready to go. Now I want to ungroup it because it's time to start doing some fun stuff. So I need to select the image. If at any point you head over here and everything's grayed out and you don't know why you can't do any work on this area, it's because you don't have an image selected. So I'm going to select my poinsettia. I'm going to head up here to the right-hand side where it says Ungroup, and I'm just going to ungroup it. Now what's happened, when I select, I'm only going to get the piece that my cursor is on because now it is ungrouped. Okay, I want to duplicate this bottom leaf image. So do you see where it is right here? This is actually a layout of all the pieces of this poinsettia. I'm going to click on that image. I've clicked on the image, which means I've selected that particular layer that I want to duplicate. And I'm going to head up here to the top, and I'm just going to click Duplicate. When I do that, I get another one. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and move it to the side, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to duplicate it again. Okay, because I need two of them to make the base of my poinsettia. Now, if I just stuck these guys together at that petal right there, number one, it'd be really weak. And number two, it would not be folded correctly when I folded it down. Although it would lay over and look okay because the petals would just look really full or the leaves would just look really full, this guy would fold in this area. I hope that makes sense because you would just be folding it on top of the one underneath. So we need to do some fancy footwork. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this guy and holding down Shift on my keyboard, I'm going to click the second one. Now I don't want to make any moves at this point until I have everybody put back together, okay? So using these two guys, what I'm going to do is come to Align. I want to center align this both horizontally and vertically. And what that'll do is it'll pull them together and make them look like one. So let me click it. So see how it looks like one image? Now here's what I want to do. I want to connect my poinsettia card at this petal and this petal. So that means I want to turn them up. So what I'm going to do is just grab this guy like this, and I'm going to turn those petals up because that's where I want my card to connect, okay? Now, I want you to imagine these two pieces laying on top of each other because they are. If I were to open this like a book, okay, or like a portrait card, I would take this from this petal, I would open up. So I can't simply grab this first one and just move it out of the way and try to connect it up here because that won't work. When we fold it down, it won't be lined up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this guy back here like so. I could use my line and everything and get it just right, but this will do just fine. What I want to do is I want to flip it up, okay? So I'm going to head to flip. I only have the top leaf selected, and you see where it says flip vertical? That's what I want to do. I'm going to flip this petal or these set of leaves vertical. Now, when I do that, it looks like a mess. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep it selected, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to slide this up because I just want you to see what just happened. I'm not going to be able to go that far because my screen stops. Let me bring this down. So I just slid this out of the way for you to see that, okay? And look what's going to happen. Now I can connect those two little leaves together, and this point will now fold to this point on this line. I hope that made sense. We couldn't just slide it up and connect it because it wouldn't fold correctly, but this way it will, okay? Now what I need to do, I need to weld these guys together, because if I were to say make it at this point in time, that would be two pieces that cut, and it would just cut this line, and I don't want it to. I want it to be one piece, okay? So I need to select them both again. There's a couple of ways to select images. Let me show you a few. One, you can take your cursor off to the side, click and drag, and grab both images, okay? You can also come over to this side, select one that you want, hold down shift and select the next one you want, and that gets them both. Or what my habit is, select one, hold down shift on my keyboard, and select the second one. Now I have those two selected. Let's go to the bottom right-hand panel right here where it says Weld. We want to use Weld because we want to turn this into one image and not attach. Attach just says cut them where they are. Weld says turn them into one image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Weld. If you've never seen this before, I want you to watch right here and right here as I click Weld. This is where it turns it into one image. See that? That line between them went away, and now this guy will be one image whenever it's cut. Now I'm going to click Save. Why? Because I don't want to lose my work. Every time I do some sort of step like that, I will save it as I go. The next thing I'm going to do is add a fold line at the top. You'll see when I put the card together that I need this top leaf section to fold in half so that it can be an easel. So what I'm going to do while I'm here is just go ahead and put a score line in. So just grabbing a score line. Now I don't want my score line to go in this direction. This is vertical. I need it to go horizontal. So I'm just going to grab one side and rotate it. But I want to show you a different way to do it. If I do this way, sometimes I struggle to get it exactly at 90 degrees. You can see here, I didn't get it at 90 degrees. So instead, what you can do is just with the image selected, go to the rotate box and type in 90. Now I know it's exactly straight where I want it to be 90 degrees. All right, let's head up to the top. Now I'm going to eyeball this. I just kind of want it in the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a card that's pretty organic as it is a flower, so you don't have to be perfect with it. So I'm going to leave this guy right here. But if I walk away at this point, when I go to make this project, that score line is not going to be right there. The reason is I have not attached it in that spot. I've just sat it there, but I've not told Cricut, hey, I want you to hold this score line right here. So we need to get that score line back. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to hold down shift on my keyboard and select my leaves also. Now I'm going to head to the bottom and look at my only option. It is attach. So I'm going to attach that guy there. Now you see that I have this little dotted line. So that means that score mark is going to stay right there. So this is my base ready to go. Super easy. Now the only other thing I want to do is I want to pull these guys apart and change the colors. And I'll tell you why. What should I do first? Save. That's right. Tell me in the comments. Save it. Save it. I want to pull these guys apart and change the colors. I like to do that because it lets me know what papers I'm going to want to get. If you like a multicolored poinsettia like this, leave it that way. But I want to change the colors. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with this first guy. I'm going to head over to the panel where I see it, okay? I'm going to let the attributes fly out, and I want to change this one to berry or to very berry, okay? So I know that's the color I want these petals to be. So opening the color sync panel shows you all of your images in their colors the way they're lined out. I want these petals to be this red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these petals and bring them to that red. When I do that, you'll notice on my screen that the colors are changing. That's because I've synced those colors together. Now everything else seems to be fine. The only thing is my green that I'm actually going to use is a little darker than this. So I could actually come up here and change that color as well. This is just because I want to, not because I have to. So I can change that to emerald, and then I can color sync it here. I actually use this feature because a lot of times I will build a project and then I'll share it with like Amanda who's going to cut it. And this way she knows exactly what colors she needs to pick to make this work, if that makes sense. We do that a lot when we're making kits for card classes. And this is actually a kit for one of my card classes. All right, let's save this guy. It is all ready. The only thing we need to do now is we need to make a banner, because without the banner, we won't have anything to stop our easel in this area. So I'm going to move these guys out of my way. Now there are a lot of banners to choose from. I want something super simple, and I just happen to know that this guy is the one I'm looking for. So to save time, I'm just going to click on this one and then insert this image. Now I don't want the polka dots. I just like the shape of this banner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to where it is in my layers panel and see this eyeball right here. If I turn this eyeball off like that, that first layer goes away. I could just delete the layer, but it's just as simple to do it that way. Also, I do not want it green. I want this guy white. So I'm going to click on white. Now I need to resize it to fit here. So I'm just going to click and drag. I want it to keep its proportions. So I don't want to unlock it. I really do want it to kind of stay proportional for the way it's created. And I want it to run along this area, and I want it to be a little wider than my poinsettia. I think I'll go a little bit more. So something like that, okay? This is the piece that I'm going to pop up on foam that will hold this poinsettia up to be the easel card. So now I'll move this down here, and let's add some text. I want this one to say Merry Christmas. So let's, oops, I lost it. Let's get it back. All right, let's type Merry Christmas. And then I want to change the font. I'm going to head up here to where it says font, and it says Cricut Sans right now. I don't want that font. I want a different font. I'm not exactly sure which one I want, and this is where I could spend 3 hours looking for fonts. And so I'm just going to flip through here till I find one. I kind of know what I'm looking for. There it is right there, Art Deco. I think this one's so pretty. So I'm going to click on Art Deco. And what I love about it is it's a nice, tall, bold font, so it'll fill up that banner really nice. But I'm going to shrink this down and then put it inside that banner. All right, so we're going to come over. Oops, I'm going to grab it and bring it over to my banner. Now, I want to show you something. I would not normally do this, and my graphic designer would not love it that I'm fixing to do this, but I'm going to stretch this font down. Normally, you don't want to do that because you want your fonts to keep their look and to keep their proportions, so you don't want to stretch them in a way that they're not meant to be stretched. But this particular font can stretch down and still look really nice. It doesn't really lose anything in the stretch. It actually looks really nice. So I'm going to stretch it and get it just like I want it. Just like that. Now, that looks pretty centered, but I want to be sure it's centered. So I'm going to select both of these images, head up here to Align, and I'm going to tell it to center both directions, horizontally and vertically. Okay, I want to show you something else. My Merry Christmas words right now, the Cricut thinks I want to cut it from that banner, but I don't want to cut it from that banner. I want to print it on that banner. So what I'm going to do is head over to this little panel, and you can see that that M, that is my text, is right here. And notice this little pair of scissors over here. I'm going to click those scissors. When this flies out, I can now click Print. And by doing that, I've now told the Cricut, no, I don't want to cut those letters. I want to print those letters, but I still have to tell it where. Just because I have it sitting here does not mean it will print right here. If I were to say make it now, it would cut a banner and it would print Merry Christmas separately. What I want to do is I want to attach Merry Christmas to that banner. So I've selected both. I'm going to come to the bottom and click attach. Now, when you look into your layers panel, you can see that my text is going to print, but my banner is still going to cut, and that's what I want it to do. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to say make it and show you what that looks like. So I've shown you before how the Cricut cuts. There's really nothing with the machine I would need to show you at this point. You would just say go and load your mats in, and that's how you would cut. But I'm going to go now and assemble the card so you can see how to assemble it. So these are the pieces that we get when we do the cut. For your print and cut, you get this little guy right here, which is our Merry Christmas banner. And then I got all of these little pieces. So I got 3 red poinsettia pieces, just like we had designed in the software. I got a green piece, and then I got these 2 pieces, which this is the card base, okay? So to start with, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fold the card base. It's really simple to fold, but I will tell you, I don't have the new scoring wheel on my maker yet. I'm hoping to get it soon. But this little guy does a score mark. You can kind of see it there, but it's kind of faint. So here's what you do. If you'll just kind of start your bend like that, the score mark will do its job. See how it's kind of just bending where it's supposed to go? And then you can just crease that down with a bone folder. So that does your crease for you, okay? Now, that's going to open and close, so you don't really mind if that folds back and forth. That's good. This section here is your card base, so we want to fold that in half as well. So I'm going to fold this down and line this guy up so that it kind of matches. It doesn't have to be perfect. And remember, I didn't crease these because they just really didn't need it. They're the tiniest little connection, so they don't really need to be creased. So once we finish assembling this card, when you open the card, it'll go like this, and your little Merry Christmas sentiment will stop it there, okay? So there's your base. Put that aside. Now, before I assemble this, I want to emboss this. I just think it'll be so much prettier if it's all embossed. So let's get out our Cuttlebug. So I'm going to use my Cuttlebug. I'm putting my A plate and my B plate down, and I'm going to need another B plate to go on top. I am going to emboss the petals and the leaves separately. I'm not going to emboss the card base. This folder is called the Crackle folder, and this one is called Holly and Vines. I'm going to use the Crackle folder for my leaves. I thought it would be neat to have two different textures, but you really don't have to do this step. I just thought it was pretty, and you don't have to use any specific Christmas folders either. Any texture will add something cool to those flowers, because if you've ever seen a poinsettia, you know they have a lot of texture on them as it is. Now, this card fits in an A2 size envelope, so it works with an A2 size embossing folder. But if you make a larger poinsettia, you might want to think about that when you go to emboss it and make sure it will run through your machine, because you can get bigger folders, but I was using the smaller ones. So this is those petals embossed. They look so pretty like that. It really does change the look of the flower. And I do emboss the large red one as well. I just do it separately. But here you can see how pretty that embossing is. I just love it. I think it's so pretty. So now I'll do the big red one. And we're also going to do the leaf, like I told you. But I'm doing the leaf in that crackle finish because I think that'll be cool to have a little bit different. But again, not the base. I want the base to stay nice and flat. So I did not emboss that at all. I did decide last minute to go back and emboss that little yellow piece that's the centerpiece. And I really could have done it when I ran that first leaf through because there was plenty of room on the embossing folder to put it on. I just didn't think about it. So I just decided to run it back through again. I did go back and move it on that folder to where there was more texture and made sure I got some really good embossing on it. Now you get to see a mistake. I left this mistake in for you guys to see. So I'm going to add foam squares in between every layer. I want each layer to pop up from the last. So I'm putting foam squares onto all of these petals. Now when I go to assemble this guy, I discover I don't need that foam square I just placed down because it gets sandwiched between these two. So I'm just cutting the foam to fit. I'm going to make every layer is going to pop up until I glue it to the base. I just think it's really pretty to have all that movement and texture between each one. So get those glued down. I thought I needed one on the green, but I did think in advance, and I really don't. I might use it on my base, but I do in the end decide not to. All right, so I'm going to stick these guys down. Now, this is important. I left the contour lines in. Contour lines are lines that the Cricut cuts on images to help you line it up at the end when you're doing these layered projects like this. So I left them in. You can take them out of the file if you'd like to. You can just go and remove the contour lines. But I really find when I'm trying to line these petals up that it really does help for me to see what goes where. And then once I get it all lined up where it goes, I can just stick that down and it looks really cool. Now I'm going to say this. This is a flower. It's organic. These petals don't have to line up any certain way. You can put them on there any way you want. I was just trying to stick and be really close to the actual original image, but you can do it any way you want. Now this is where I discover that I don't need that foam. So I take the foam off and I tear the paper just a tiny bit, but not enough to matter. It's going to be hidden under that petal and you won't see it. So there's my mistake. I do end up using that piece of foam in just a minute though. So now I can just peel the backer off of this little guy and line him up. Again, those contour lines really come in handy because I'm trying to stick to exactly how this poinsettia was designed, but I could just turn it any old way and it would work. No one would know and it would still look just as good. They can be a little hard to see. You do have to turn this kind of back and forth to find them, but once you find them, it lays into place and you can see exactly where it goes. They're kind of just like trace lines for you to follow. No big deal. Look how pretty that is. I love that. I love it. Now, in hindsight, this little centerpiece, it's a little bright. I probably would have done a glitter paper or even maybe not cut it at all and just use maybe a piece of bling in the center of that flower. I think it would have been just as pretty. But for now, this works, and I really was testing this card to see how well it would go, and I think it turned out pretty good. Now, this is the one that gave me a little bit of trouble. That poinsettia has those contour marks to line up. I probably wouldn't stress too much about it, honestly, except I wanted this one to look just like it did in the Cricut file. So I spent some time lining these petals up. But once I find it, it makes perfect sense. Once I get there, it's there and I can glue it down. So it takes me just a second, but then I finally get there. So I put a little foam on the back of those red petals and I'm going to stick it down inside the contour lines of the poinsettia. And when I do, I end up with like 3 leaves that stick out the side. It's really pretty when it's done. So just stick that together. And now it's time to glue it to our card base. And I do like all of the movement between the layers. I think it's pretty. So gluing it to our card base is super easy. Now, we folded the card base on the score line. So we want to make sure that we have the score line at the in the middle and the open edge of our base at the bottom. Our welded part is at the top. So our glue is going to go under our fold line. You don't want to go above the fold line. If you do, it won't be an easel. Then we're just going to line this up at the bottom so it'll be one solid looking flower. But then when the glue's dry, we can open it and I'll show you how it looks like, the easel card. So again, you do want this base to line up with the leaf because that's going to make it make sense. And I think that's why it looks like one solid poinsettia. If you want to cut a piece to put on the back, another leaf or something, so you can write on the back of the card, you can. I'm just going to write on the green. I think it'll look just as good. And then here's how it works. You fold it and you get your base there and you'll have an easel. But we need our stopper. So this is where I'm going to put my little banner on that we cut and printed the word Merry Christmas on. Now, in the past, I have learned this by making mistakes, so I'm going to save you guys a little headache. When you put your foam onto something like this, something that's kind of shaped, it's best to put the foam to the project first and then put the banner to the foam. Anytime I've ever put the foam on the banner first, I usually have some hanging off the side because I go too far off the edge. But this way I know that foam tape is exactly where I want my banner to be and there won't be any extra hanging off anywhere. So trust me, there's a reason for this madness of putting that tape there first. So then we just stick our little banner piece down, which is super cute. I love it. And here you'll see it become the easel. Now the bottom petal of that poinsettia locks in to that little piece there and it becomes your easel card. How adorable. These cards always remind me of my mom. Anytime I do a shaped card or something like this, the reason is I know if I gave this to my mother, she would display this somewhere in her home, on her desk or on her kitchen window, on the windowsill or something. I just love it. And that's all there is to it, guys. Your poinsettia easel card. I'll share the link for you below in the description. And if you make it, I want to see it. Hey, thanks so much for watching today, guys. You can share your projects with us on our customer gallery at maymaymadeit.com.